Hi, and good evening to another episode of Education Matters with Jim O'Connell. Um, Pleased to have you on board. If you're watching live, it's Tuesday, January the 9th at 6 p.m., and we're on from 6 to 7 p.m. The live line to call in at this time is area code 603, and the number is 640-3091. I'm always happy to hear from you, as those of you familiar with the show will know. There are those who call in and agree, and there are those who call in and don't agree. So either way, your voice is welcome here, and do feel free to call in. The number is 640-3091 in area code 603. So we're just today is the temperature went up by about 10 or 20 degrees in the last 24 hours, and it's been very welcome because I think it's been a couple of years since we've been through the kind of deep freeze that we went through in the city and in the area over the last few weeks, or in the first week of January. I want to I want to commend the city employees and the city departments for the work they've done in clearing snow and keeping streets moving and things moving over the last week or so. And I'm sure that as a casual citizen, that I probably know one hundredth of that which really went on. I know we had that big water main break over near Central High School a couple of days ago, and 45 dwellings were affected. That's quite a large event, and I know they're still working on that, and my heart goes out to the families who were affected by that. But again, it was just very commendable the way the city came together. Central High School was opened as a resource for people to stay warm in and to congregate in, and it's wonderful to see that the city comes together in the way that it does. And I know those are sort of truisms, etc. But I think too often we go on with our daily lives. We expect to walk in the house and put on the faucet and the water comes on, and flick a switch and the electricity comes on, and get up in the morning after a snowstorm and drive down the street, and the streets are plowed, and everything is up and running and working. And of course, that doesn't happen without a lot of people, a lot of public employees doing a lot of doing their work, and of course doing it in terrible circumstances. And while we're sitting at home by the fire, they're out doing their work. So on my behalf, I'd just like to say, I for one, but I think I represent many people in the city when I say that we're grateful to our city employees for the work that they do. Just like teachers and administrators and people who work on behalf of the kids in our city. If it's amazing the number of agencies, the number of individuals, the number of people who oftentimes are working for not very robust wages. Teachers' salaries start at about $35,000, and they top out at 74 or something, or 75 in the city of Manchester, with 14 years of longevity and a master's degree. That's where you would get to when you top out at the very end. And the teachers are the largest single group of employees in the city of Manchester, and that's what their pay scale is. And so we on this program we talk, but not often enough, about the teachers who are working with kids, late into the afternoon and evening, teachers who come in on Saturdays or Sundays. I remember talking about teachers at our high schools who came in the morning so they could teach extra classes before school started, or not formal classes as in teaching a class that's organised, but rather working with particular classes, like an AP teacher who was putting in an extra half an hour so that the kids each day would have a kickstart to make sure that they got all the teacher time that they needed. So all of those unsung heroes, a heartfelt thanks to them on my behalf. Let me go to the Manchester School District website for a second here, and I often commend it as a resource, a place to check into, and of course the Aspen program, which is the portal for parents of students to go in, and you're able to see lots of information in real time about your students' academics, etc. So let me. If I could just find the coffees and conversation thing that Dr. Vargas has been doing now for a year. The next ones are coming up. So tomorrow, the January 10th, Dr. Vargas will be at 7:30 tomorrow morning. He'll be at Beach Street Elementary School at 333 Beach Street. So if you have questions or comments or suggestions, or you want to hear what's going on, 7:30 tomorrow morning at Beach Street School, you get to sit with the superintendent. They're usually pretty intimate affairs where, there's maybe a dozen people. It's not a big meeting format, and he's there to listen. Usually the format of these things is that he will say a few words, perhaps for 4 or 5 minutes, just laying out maybe some of the things that are happening or whatever he has in his mind for that morning. And then he's there to listen and to answer questions or to take information and go run with it and see what answers he may be able to come up with. The other one is that so if you're not around tomorrow morning at 7:30, the following day on January the 11th, which is Thursday, at 4:30 p.m. he'll be at Hillside Middle School on Reservoir Avenue. So that's tomorrow morning at Beach Street, and then January the 11th at 4:30 at Hillside. And then you'll have to wait until February 7th and 8th when he'll be at Green Acres and West High. But I suggest that you go on social media and on Facebook, or you just hang out at someone's kitchen table or whatever. There are often conversations about Manchester schools, and my observation is that a lot of the conversations that are had about schools, about teachers, about requirements, about curriculum, they're often, even with the best intentions in the world, those conversations are based on a false premise, a misunderstanding. And we see it all the time on places like Facebook, and I'm more of a looker at Facebook than I am a participator, but I'll see a conversation go on and 10 people enter a thread, and they're all offering, and the very first post was incorrect to start with, but sometimes you have to get. It was like one of the snow days last week, and there was somebody on. Is Manchester going to call? Why are we waiting till the morning? We know it's going to be snowing and all that. And at the point, the lady or gentleman was writing this whole thing about complaining about the Manchester School District not calling snow days in a timely manner. It was the afternoon before the snow day, and as this person was writing, the day had already been cancelled. But that didn't stop, all the comments going on down through Facebook. So social media sometimes is very unhelpful. And then with regard to the coffee and chats with Dr. Vargas, it's really the place to start. If you have a question about the schools, perhaps you're a parent who's considering, where to send your student, what school to go to, or how to proceed, or whether to go to a parochial school or whatever it may be. Dr. Vargas is the man. He's the chief executive officer of the school district, and if anybody has an answer to questions in the schools, it is him. And too often in the city, we end up going to the political level, or maybe that's putting it in the wrong term, political, but going to school board members, and sort of raising things to, they ought to, etc., before asking the question first. So I always think that we should run through the hierarchy as it goes. If there's a problem with a kid, if you're having some issue with your school, you talk to the teacher, you talk to the assistant principal and principal, and usually it gets resolved right there. In most of the cases I've been involved in, it's been resolved right there. And so Yeah, the next place to go if you have to go somewhere is to the district. I know of very few cases that actually needed to go to the district. Um, I know that at special education they often need to go to the district, or sometimes do, and that I've seen that happen quite a bit. But um, anyway, it's not just not to understate this issue of Dr. Vargas being available once a month, or about once a month or a little more, where you can actually go and you can talk to you can talk to him and have your concerns heard and responded to. So I would suggest that that's a wonderful thing to do. The other thing that I had on here, if I could find it, was the STEAM Ahead program at Manchester West High School. I've been less than forceful in my support of STEAM Ahead, and I have to be frank and say I didn't like the program as it began, because I didn't like the way in which it was begun, which was as like the shiny object over here that people should look at, so they wouldn't look at the rest of the school system. So I was wont to not be too enamored with it, but it has proved itself by being sustained over time. Mayor Baines and the people at Dine were, as the private partnership, were the prime movers of that, and it's a program that I think that Mayor Gatsis, as he departed, it was maybe the big thing that he was proud of as an achievement. And so, is it perfect? No, but it is a step in the right direction. And the reason why I bring it up here is because there was an announcement last week that there's a new. I'm reading from an article here. It says the new University of New Hampshire program offers support and scholarships for Manchester STEAM Ahead students, and also for STEM kids at Dover High School. I really dislike the word STEAM just because it's the word is STEM, and it sort of waters it down a little bit by making it STEAM. But in any case, this is an important program for people to be aware of, where reading from here, it says a new program developed by the University of New Hampshire will help 30 students from Manchester West and Dover High Schools with academic talent and financial need attend college to study in the fields of science, technology, engineering, or math. The Finishers Program, as it's called, will provide up to 4 years of scholarship, as well as ongoing academic support and job placement assistance. So the program is it's a $1 million fund funded by the National Science Foundation, one of those entities that some of our more conservative friends want to see eliminated. But the National Science Foundation is giving $1 million to this fund through UNH, and it will allow 30 kids to get a total of $24,000 worth of need assistance for tuition, so $6,000 a year for 4 years at university. It will be a funding of I don't know what the terminology is, not last resort, but you'll have to apply for whatever if there are Pell Grants available, which there are for every student, or usually. So whatever grants are available that you can get through the university system or through the federal government, Department of Education, etc., you would avail of those first. And then these 30 kids from both Dover and Manchester West would get an additional $6,000 per year. And that's no small achievement, ladies and gentlemen, to get that extra money, and so it's a big deal, and those involved in the program should be rightfully proud of it. Quoting here from Mr. David Mattingly, who's the assistant professor of physics at UNH, who's the head of the program, he says, STEAM Ahead is a successful public-private school partnership, an industry partnership. Participating students are absent 1/5 as often and have almost a point higher GPA than those not participating in the program. But when they graduate high school, the support stops. This new program helps students transition from high school to college and persist through a 4-year college degree and STEM career by providing the financial and academic support that they need. He noted that the Steam Ahead was founded to help businesses in the state meet their skilled workforce needs, and that need still exists. Um, for students who may not have the resources to attend college, this often means an end to their education and a limit to STEM workforce development in the state. Manchester High School West is extremely excited to enter this partnership with SNU, said Mr. Rick Deschard, who's the wonderful principal over at West High School. He says it's a tremendous opportunity for our students to be part of a cutting-edge program while keeping the cost of college tuition at a more affordable rate via the scholarship that comes with it. So it'll average $24,000 per student over the 4 years, and it's designed to meet the average unmet need for these students. In addition to that, the 24 students the 30 students in this program, they'll receive continuous academic support from their senior year of high school through college, as well as job and graduate school placement assistance and mentorship. Knowledge gained from studying each student's progress and experience will provide data needed to better support students in STEM across the country. So this is the National Science Foundation's interest in it. By following these students and supporting this program here in New Hampshire, they can develop data that will then help them to implement programs in other parts of the country. And so here it says, by providing this unified system that addresses financial, academic, professional, and social need, we can support these 30 students and learn from them how to improve overall education equity at UNH, Mattingly said. That's the gentleman from UNH. In this time of rising economic inequality, we have an obligation to keep higher education accessible and affordable for low-income and first-generation students. Because of this program, at least 30 kids will go to college who might not have otherwise been able to. Interested students must apply to UNH by February the 1st, 3 weeks, 2018, and complete the FAFSA, which is the Federal Financial Aid forms, by March 1st. Help with all of that is available through any high school's guidance counselors, and so if you should make an appointment, call them up and go see them. They're wonderful people. Federal regulations require that eligibility is based on the FAFSA. For more information, contact David Mattingly, etc. And all the FAFSA does really is establishes that, you know, if you're earning $3 million a year, or if you're earning $3,000 a year, so it's just a standardized process you go through that establishes what your income is and therefore what your qualification is for programs such as this, based on family size and things like that. University of New Hampshire is a flagship student of 16,000 students and all the rest of it. So this is a wonderful plus for Manchester, and a wonderful plus for West High School. And West High School, Mr. Deschard over there, and Mr. Baines and Mayor Gatsis for coming up with this in the first place, deserve credit. We need more of this. This type of program, and rather than less. In the end, we have these programs are sometimes dressings on to cover up some more basic needs. In the end, where the real rubber meets the road in a city like Manchester, or more broadly in the state of New Hampshire, is that what we need to be doing is encouraging students to partake in physics, chemistry, biology, computer science, and other courses at high school, and we need to also be facilitating those courses in our middle schools and even from grade school. But when we in the city of Manchester are maxing out our highest level math classes, and then kids are not qualifying to get the highest level of math because there isn't enough spaces in that classroom, then that's a significant problem, and it's one that needs to be resolved, because right there we're burning off kids from the very beginning, and so it's important that we keep our resources pointed into places that will deliver the best bang for not just the city but for the state and for the young people involved in jobs, etc. There's no question, that when we look at the job market in Manchester, in Greater Manchester, there are numerous jobs available for people who are qualified in science and technology. And computer science, and so it's very easy, really. Go to school, do your work, and that isn't to say that there aren't lots of jobs for other people qualified as well. But clearly, the message ought to be, the greater the higher one's level of qualification, the better chances there are of getting a job, and of course, the better pay often you will get for that job. Now, I've talked before about the issue about ready to work and school to work, etc. And it's a whole area that I worry about, because in the end, education should be done for education's sake. And what we really should be producing from our school system isn't little robots ready to stick into slots in some jobs somewhere, but rather we should be educating young people so that they have a viable place in society. So we should be educating them as whole young people. So while why the concentration is on STEM is because that's where the lack is. If the lack were someplace else, then people would be talking about that area. But science and technology is the place where there's some low-hanging fruit and there's easy stuff there. But in the end, what we need to be doing for our students is we want to produce, as a school system and as a society, our ambition should be to produce well-rounded, well-educated young people who are equipped to make good decisions in their own personal lives, make good decisions for their families, make good decisions as voters and as members of the community, and contribute to the community. That's the job of schools. And I worry that a lot of the conversations that we hear going on in sort of politically and from the Department of Education and from others is around this work-ready stuff, which smacks of, to me, getting, if we had a lot of mills still in Manchester producing cloth or something, our job as educators wouldn't be and shouldn't be to be producing kids who can go off and down and work in the mills. And so, by definition, if the main work is, managing spools, in some wool and cloth manufacturing facility, then those are the skills we'd pass on to the kids. I don't want that to happen. I think we're in danger of doing that, and I hear a lot of those conversations because, as I've said before, there is absolutely a place in the world for people of all different trades and jobs and professions, and manual labor is an honourable thing to be doing. And there are people who are needed in trades and can be will be very successful in them. I think I saw the other day, and I mentioned here, that the according to the Carpenters Union, they were doing a release when they bought their new building on Candy Road recently. That the average tradesperson in the state of New Hampshire, their annual salary was $75,000 per year for a tradesperson. And they also, at the same release, they said that the average age of a tradesman in the state of New Hampshire was 51. So there was a time coming when 15 years from now, half the tradesmen in the state of New Hampshire will be retired if they all worked at 65. And so there's a real opportunity there. However, to rush off and say, let's produce a whole load of carpenters, iron workers, telecommunication workers, and plumbers, and whatever. Yes, we should. That's the simple answer, I suppose. But not just that, because I think it's important to understand that because I think it's sort of derogatory to think that somebody who wants to be a telephone lineman, or who wants to be who works for PSNH, or a guy who works for one of the plumbing companies in the city, or owns their own plumbing company, that somehow they don't need to be as well educated, or they shouldn't need to have an interest in the arts or music or philosophy or political science or geography or history or all the other things they might want to do. I don't agree with that, and I think it's important as an education system that what Manchester do is ensure that a kid comes out, and if they end up being a car mechanic, an auto mechanic, or whatever it is, that they have had the benefit of an education at one of our great high schools or one of our great schools, and so they come out of there with the stamp of Manchester education on their forehead, so to speak, which says here's a well-rounded young man or young woman who understands something of the world, who's had a good education, and while they choose to be a gas fitter or an artist or a ballet dancer or whatever it is they choose to be, that the school system has given them a well-rounded education, and not, as some would have it, that the school system prepared them for work and sort of spotted where that was and pushed them right at it. We can do both. We can have our trade school education, and have that a well-rounded education. We can do that and still fulfill the need in terms of trades and in terms of professions, etc. Clearly, the need in the state of New Hampshire is, in the end, our big challenge at the macro level is to retain young people in our state. And in order to retain young people in our state, we have to make our state attractive for young people. We have the oldest population in the United States of America, and all of us who were older need to be aware of this, and we need to make sure that our state is vibrant and attractive, and that we have the pieces in place to attract young families to our state. And as far as Manchester being a microcosm of that, we've seen in Manchester some, lots of good things happening, but we know for sure that there's one hole or one gap, and that gap is that in the city of Manchester, because of the way our school system has been over the last 10 years, that young people with families are not choosing to move to Manchester. When you see things like what's happening at West High School and the UNH combination, hopefully people see that and it causes them to have different thoughts. I know when there are a number of courses, and there's one that I've talked about before, but the aviation course that's available to Manchester high schoolers, that's run through the Aviation Museum, and has them have time at GE Manufacturing in the jet engine manufacturing facility in Hooksett, is a wonderful example of a program available to young people in Manchester. So there's two sides to this. There's we actually have to do a better job of improving our school system so that we have lower class pupil teacher ratio sizes, and that we're offering a great product to people. We need to that's something that we need to do in order to attract families into the city of Manchester, and I'm hoping that the incoming school board is an interesting thing, so we'll see how it we'll see how it pans out. I know that on today's Union Leader, they were addressing the issue of the committee assignments. Mayor Craig, I didn't see the school board meeting last night, so I heard some rumblings about it, but nothing untoward or nothing of any major interest. So I did hear one thing about a discussion around healthcare, that there was a long discussion on healthcare services for interpreters, people who come in and help immigrant families or non-English speaking families to communicate with the school or with the school district. And the point was made to me that why such the long discussion, that the school board members who are part-timers or non-employees have got a healthcare offering. Which I've agreed with my friend Phil, who's a regular caller to the show, is something that they should abandon and not have now. But insofar as they have it, then why not give this group of interpreters, just to give them the same health care? If it's good enough for the school board, it should be good enough for the employees coming in. So hopefully that's not going to become another boondoggle that we spend a lot of time on. On today's editorial page in the Union Leader, there was a piece around about the issue of it says Craig's partisan start, a note of caution, because some have been cross at Mayor Craig because she, a couple of things. She broke a tied vote at the mayor and alderman, the board of mayor and alderman, as to who the chairman would be, and the board was divided 7-7 between Alderman Hirschman of Ward 12 and Alderman at Large Dan O'Neill, and Joyce Craig, as one of her first acts as mayor, was to, first of all, she adjourned the meeting for 15 minutes to allow the two sets of 7 aldermen, there are 14 aldermen altogether, to allow the two sets of 7 aldermen to go and reconsider, and in the end they didn't, and it came back 7-7. So what was she to do? I know Jo Kelly Levasseur was agitated that she had broken the tie, but she could sit around and beat it to death for another 4 hours or 4 days or 4 weeks. I think it was this very simple thing. The alderman had the opportunity to come up with compromise and to reach a solution. They didn't, and so as a good executive should do, she chose one side or the other, and then move on. The other thing that people were agitated about was that supposedly in our supposedly politics-free local environment, of course everybody knows it's not really politics-free, but that no Republicans were given chairmanships of the various subcommittees of the board of mayor and aldermen, and I think it's laughable actually that people who've been crowing for a year about elections have consequences, and there's those who win have the right to do whatever they want to do, and here we have over a simple silly little thing like chairmanship of subcommittees on this little committee, the board of mayor and aldermen, and people are getting their noses bent out of shape. I didn't see anything too untoward to it. And even the Union Leader here says, it talks about, it says Craig's partisan start, but that's the headline on the editorial. But really it says, it points out that 2 years ago, Alderman Dan O'Neill was upset when then Mayor Ted Gatsas broke a tie in naming Pat Long as chairman. So, Ted Gatsas broke the tie the previous 2 years earlier, and so this year Craig broke a tie in O'Neill's favour after first giving Alderman a chance to break the deadlock on their own. Then, as now, Alderman Jo Kelly Levasseur wanted the mayor to let the board choose its own chair, but the mayor's job includes, this is according to the Union Leader, but the mayor's job includes breaking ties. Craig's action here was appropriate, and O'Neill gets the gavel he saw 2 years ago. And I find myself once in a while even in agreement with the Union Leader, and I agree with him here again. I just want action. I want to see things moved on, and let's not be staring at our navels and all this, unimportant conversations about things that don't matter all the time. Let's get the city moving forward. And I liked, at the first meeting of the very first meeting of the school board that Mayor Craig oversaw, and a number of times back in the first week of January, a number of times at that meeting, there had been a discussion about limiting the time of debate. and some people, and probably rightly so, were concerned that that might be a bad rule to make. That because in the end democracy is democracy, and it might be abused, and so people could be shut down. There is the chair has a gavel, and the chairperson has the power to put the matter to a vote at any point, and they can do that. So I think there was enough, and this is how the meeting felt in the end, and how things prevailed, or how things went on, was that no change was made. But even at that first meeting, I admiringly noted that Mayor Craig, on a number of occasions, said, "Okay, I'll accept a motion," and called on Mr. Beaudry or Mr. Avard or Mr. Gerard, whoever it was. Do you have a motion? And let's put the motion to a vote. And well, it wasn't as it was a first meeting, and as I said, I didn't see last night's meeting. At the first meeting, it wasn't as though we zipped through things, but there was at least an inkling of that which we might get as time goes on, that some of the pontification that goes on at these things will be brought to heel, and that people, I think everybody should be allowed their say, and there should be no element of people finding themselves shut off or shut down without having had an adequate time to explain their point of view. But there are those who come to those meetings who are business-like, want to get business done and want to get back to their lives and go home. And there are those for whom these meetings are like a full-time job, and they like nothing better than to go to a board of school meeting and sit and talk ad nauseum about their deepest thoughts on the subject du jour. So I'm delighted with this initial effort by Joyce Craig, and the Union Leader editorial today says, "We've never taken much stock in Manchester official fiction of holding non-partisan elections. Political factions exist whether or not they are labelled on the ballot." I think that's true, but we do know that. Craig did not choose any Republicans to chair Aldermanic or school board committees. We hope she is willing to work with her GOP colleagues over the next 2 years. And I think that's exactly where it is. I think we will find out very shortly, whether Mayor Craig is collegial and accommodating and understanding, and is looking to seek consensus and move the city forward based on consensus as opposed to ideology or dogma. And I'm hopeful that's what we get, because that's the kind of person she is. It's the kind of person, as I supported her, that I expected her to be. And by the way, when you look at the actual subcommittees as they were created here on the Board of School Committee, first of all, a number were eliminated. One that was eliminated was the IT committee. I don't know if that was a good idea or not. Again, I trust people they divided the responsibility for IT up between a number of other committees instead. But the committees as they were laid out for the next 2 years are at the Athletics Committee is chaired by Nancy Tessier, who was the chairperson of that committee in the outgoing board, and it's so Nancy Tessier, then new board member Kelly Thomas, then Mary Georges, Lisa Freeman, and Dan Bergeron. And then the next committee is Buildings and Sites, and the chairperson of Buildings and Sites is my friend Leslie Want, is the chairperson, and then she's joined by members Bergeron, Ross Theriault, new board member Jimmy LaHoo, and Rich Gerard. That's the Building and Sites Committee. I look at these and Want, Bergeron, Theriault, LaHoo, Gerard. That seems like a balanced committee to me. I listened to what that committee had to say for itself. The Curriculum and Instruction Committee, which is a key committee in the city, because clearly there's still a job of work to be done with the whole area under curriculum, and what we're doing with curriculum, and the way in which we deliver it and how it's delivered and what's delivered is in the end, that's where the rubber meets the road. It's like having it's like having a car, servicing facility, and you can have gas pumps, and you can sell some ice cream out through the store, and you need to keep the place well decorated and well lighted, but in the end, what are you there for? You're there to service cars. That's what most of the concentration of the people in authority in the business should be concentrating on, making sure cars are fixed properly and there's good customer service for people getting cars serviced. When I look at the school board, I think in the same way around curriculum and instruction. The key thing that the school board is there to do is oversee the education of 14,500 kids, and that's the piece around curriculum and instruction. And so I think that's a very important committee. Sarah Ambrosi, who's had a lot of experience now on the school board, she was on that committee, I think, previously. She's certainly been there in the past. I don't know if she was the outgoing curriculum instruction committee person or not. I think actually it may have been. I'm not sure, but in any case, I know that Sarah Ambrosi's been on that committee before, if not the chairperson, and then joined by new school board member Dave Scannell, and again Leslie Want, Lisa Freeman, and Katie DeRochers. I know that there are a bunch of people on there who have input from various points of view, former teachers, parents, etc. And so I think that's a well balanced committee. Finance is led by John Avard, and so if John Avard is the chair, I believe John Avard is a Republican, to the best of my knowledge. I've always considered him a Republican, so I believe he is. So I think they may have been talking about just the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, because I see at least one Republican here as a chairperson. And then, so finance is John Avard, and then Sarah Ambrosi, and then Dave Scannell, Arthur Beaudry, and Rich Gerard. And then, and again, so Avard, Ambrosi, Scannell, Beaudry, Gerard. If you're counting the tea leaves, so to speak, around people who are going to be sort of holding the line and very tax cap concentrated, and then people who might be less tied to that one metric. When I look at Avard, Ambrosi, Scannell, Beaudry, and Gerard, I think there's a good cross section of people on that subcommittee representing the various sort of lines of thought on the committee. So I think that's a very solid finance committee. There's always one of these subcommittees. You could always say, well, how come, why wouldn't you put Bergeron in there instead of Freeman, or why isn't Tessier there instead of Georges, or whoever it is. But there's always going to be that kind of stuff. But big picture stuff, one of the big committees after curriculum and instruction, just think again, curriculum and instruction is Sarah Ambrosi, Dave Scannell, Leslie Want, Lisa Freeman, and Katie DeRochers. And then finance is some very experienced people on the board, right? John Avard, who's been around a long time. Sarah Ambrosi, she's been around a long time. Dave Scannell is new to the school board, but as a former administrator, as a former somebody who worked in the administration, as a current teacher in the Milford area, as a former teacher in the school district, he's been around for a long time in terms of knowing his stuff. Arthur Beaudry, who has been on that committee for a long time also, and Rich Gerard, who school board member at large, Rich Gerard, who has, whether you agree with him or not, he has demonstrated an interest in this area, and if the stack of papers he has in front of him on the desk are to count for something, then I'm sure this is a position that he would want to be in, and I think people who support his point of view will be glad to see him there. So I think finance, I look at that committee, John Avard, Sarah Ambrosi, Dave Scannell, Arthur Beaudry, Rich Gerard, those people who think that the finances of the school district are going to be, suddenly that Joyce Craig is going to be profligate in her spending, and suddenly things are going to go awry. I'd look at the one, two, three, four. I'd look at the 5 people on the finance subcommittee and say it's unlikely to pass through their hands without getting properly measured. So I like that committee. The Student Conduct Committee is led by Katie DeRochers, who is now in her 2nd or 3rd term, maybe, and then Mary Georges. I think it's wonderful to see Mary Georges on that Student Conduct Committee. A wonderful place for her. Ross Terry was there, new board member Jimmy LaHoo, new board member Thomas, and then the alternates are Bergeron and Tessier. That's a tough committee to be on. I've talked to people who were on that committee before, and there's nothing nice about having to deal with kids who are about to be expelled or to be moved out of district for behaviours or be allowed back in or whatever it is. But you're not, there are a few nice stories that come before the Student Conduct Committee. It's not the there are times as a school board member, I'm sure it's very nice to be handing out plaques and platitudes and congratulating kids on receiving awards, and there are lots of smiling and happy occasions as a school board member. The Student Conduct Committee is tough going, I think. So, but DeRocher, Georges, Terrio, LaHoo, Thomas, and then Bergeron and Tessier. I think that's a perfectly good committee, I think. And then lastly, there's coordination and administration, which let me just see. Coordination and administration is led by Art Beaudry, and then the other board members are Ambrosi, Want, Avard, and DeRoches and Tessier. So coordination and administration chaired by Art Beaudry, Ambrosi, Want, Avard, DeRoches and Tessier. So just on the school board side, ladies and gentlemen, as I look at these, when I look at these committees, I see nothing that should be alarming to anybody on any side of the political divide in these committees. And I think that I commend Alderman Craig for her choices. And without seeing any other, I don't see any ulterior motives anywhere. They seem like reasonably good committees to me, and so. Just very briefly, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, just since I have them here in front of me, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen committees are Accounts Enrolment and Revenue Administration, chaired by Alderman O'Neill, and then Chris Herbert, Bill Barry, Norman Gamache, and Keith Hirschman. Hirschman, Gamache, Barry, Hubert, O'Neill. So that's Accounts Enrolment and Revenue Administration. Administration and Information Systems, Tony Sapienza, Bill Shea, Joe Kelly Levasseur, Kevin Kavanagh, and Will Stewart. And then Bills on Second Reading, chaired by Alderman Gamache, with Alderman O'Neill, Sapienza, new board member Elizabeth Moreau, and new board member Tim Baines. Community Improvement, Alderman Herbert is the chair, then Alderman O'Neill, Sapienza, Stewart, and new board member John Cataldo. I feel less sort of, I have each of these. I'd have to take time to sort of think about each one of these because, So and then finance is Mayor Craig, Alderman Barry's the vice chairperson, and then all aldermen are part of that committee. Human Resources Insurance is Alderman Kavanagh is the chair. And then the members are Alderman Shea, Alderman Barry, Alderman Herbert, and Alderman Baines. The joint school buildings, that's all, whatever to be decided looks like. It says Alderman and school committee members. And then lands and buildings are led by Alderman Shaw. And then with Alderman Levasseur, Alderman Kavanagh, new board members Alderman Moreau and Cataldo. And then lastly, Public Safety, Health and Traffic. Alderman Barry, Bill Barry is the chairperson, and supported by committee members Shaw, Gamache, Hirschman, and Stewart. And so I haven't had time to sort of, just reading those out there, it seems to me nothing jumps off the page at me. I did hear a rumbling that I don't know what the Committeeman Hirschman was in charge of the last time. I remember seeing him there sitting at the at those committee members, but I don't remember which one it was. But he is no longer the chairperson of that, and I think I saw him express concern about that. But in the end, I don't think it matters. As somebody else said when asked, that subcommittee chairmanships are more of a hindrance, not a hindrance, that they're as much of a liability as they are anything else. Because in the end, as an alderman, you're there, you're represented as one of 14. To represent your ward, and your voice is heard. And yes, the chairperson sort of gets to decide when to call a vote or something and have a little bit more power. They also have a lot more work to do. But in the end, if your area of great concern is public safety, let's say, I think any alderman can put their stamp on that area and make it their own. In the end, we have a pretty diverse group of candidates on these boards this time, and so whatever things were like in the past, where we've had boards where there was a large majority of one line of thought and then a small group in a constant minority. These boards, and I think the 7-7 vote for the chairperson is indicative of it. The kind of glass half empty version of that is, oh my God, the boards are divided 7-7. Is it going to stay like that? The glass half full is, the board is divided on that topic, but I don't see doctrine and ideology covering that. I take Tim Baines, for instance, at his word when he runs as an independent, so I expect to see him sort of hop back and forth across whatever line there is that people see. I'd expect to see the same thing from Will Stewart. I expect the same independence of mind from Alderman Tony Sapienza that we've seen since he was elected first a couple of terms ago. So I'm hopeful that a board with a little greater diversity, at least in terms of political views and constituencies, that we may see things move forward. I don't see the stalemate that some people fear, and also I have great confidence in Mayor Craig's ability to overcome that and to create coalitions and build bridges and bring people together. If we find ourselves coming to City Hall at the end of a month and fighting over something, it means that not much work or not enough work was done in the weeks before the meeting. The meeting should reflect the work that's been done before the meeting starts, so to speak. If somebody has been taking the ball and running off the playground with it and keeping everything close to their chest, then you'll hear a lot of contention at school board meetings because board members will feel excluded and not part of the solution. I don't expect that to happen, and I actually, when I look at the long-term sort of trend here, and not to be all benevolent in my thinking, but we have Dr. Vargas, who there's been a sort of a cleaning of house, and I don't mean that in any derogatory way, but with regard to the administration, the two assistant superintendents who were there as he arrived are gone, both Dave Ryan and Chris Martin. So he has his new assistant superintendent, the former principal of Parker Varney, Amy Lynn, is there. So she's a very capable person. There's another position open to be filled, and then we have Dr. Vargas, who has proven himself to be, if nothing else, to be ready for the task and astute, both in his stewardship and management of the school district, but also in his politically in doing what he was able to do with the budget the last time and get support for that extra $2 million. So I think you have a superintendent who's certainly capable of doing the job. I poo-poo all the conversations about some people, that there being rifts and people not liking him and sort of, mutiny on the bounty stuff and all that. I think it's all nonsense. I think that it starts with the chairperson of the board, the mayor. It starts with her putting her imprimatur, her stamp on things. If her stamp is going to be collegiality, impatience with people wanting to hold back, rather, I would like to see impatience there and a determination to move the city forward. Important work needs to be done. The city's on the cusp of great things. Dr. Vargas has been saying the right things in our school district for the last year and a couple of months since he came here, which is that, if for want of having to repeat it, which is that there's no reason why our high schools can't be the best high schools in the state of New Hampshire, and our school district can't be the best school district in the state of New Hampshire. In his terms, he's actually talked about being the best schools north of Boston, and he sees no reason why that can't happen. And I think that our school board members and our board mayor and aldermen should start to see things in exactly the same light. Some of them don't have enough faith, I think, in the future of the city of Manchester. They're in their, low risk, hold. Let's not take a chance. Not that we want people taking chances per se, but the city is ready for a new day, a new leadership, a new board of mayor and aldermen, and let everybody benefit from the resulting decisions. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, a Liberal or a Conservative, or whatever it is you might be, if you've been part of a board over a 2-year period that has seen the city move in a new direction and become more vibrant and a better place to live, and with better schools and a better perception of those schools, then that's something for everybody to be proud of. And I wish people would, especially those board members who've been there a long time. It's a new day. It's not as though the whole world is going to change, but every time you start a new period in office, you have an opportunity for reinvention and to start anew. And frankly, I think any school board member or board mayor and alderman member who is sitting at a seat in City Hall in the next month, in the month of January and into February of the beginning of a 2-year term, and if they're a little jaded and not ready to work, then they should probably leave now, because they're doing themselves a disservice, and more importantly, they're doing all of us a disservice. I like to think that it won't be the case. I think that like the game that's going to be on Saturday when the Patriots play, and some of you will see this after the Patriots have played, but I'm highly confident that they'll be successful on Saturday. Like football, like many other sports, are a game of emotion, and winners win and losers lose, and sometimes it just takes a one drop ball or one amazing catch, and it changes the whole emotion and direction of the game. I think in the city of Manchester, we're on the cusp of such a thing. I think that there's an excitement about the city, and it's ready for improvement, and it's ready to step forward. And those who are dragging us back and who are not ready and excited enough about that need to rethink their positions. Let's make this city everything that it can be. We have all the pieces in place. We just need the will to decide that our best days are before us, not behind us. That with the right will, we can do any of the things that we need to do. We can make this the best place to live, with the best school system north of Boston, and that's an ambition that Dr. Vargas has voiced, and I think he should be supported. And I think people should put their shoulder to the wheel and decide that's what they want to do. And we could all be sitting here with smiles on their faces a year from now, and I can go home on Tuesday nights and not have to talk your ears to bits about education. So I wish you all a great week. We'll see you in a week from now. All the best. Good night.